Welcome to the Cruise Biology. In this video tutorial we are going to talk about synthesis of fatty acid. Now after the digestion of the food inside our body, how it can be synthesized. So fatty acid synthesis is the part of the fatty acid metabolism, that is the anabolic pathway for the synthesis of fatty acid. Now this fatty acid can be also degraded to generate the energy. In this video we are going to talk about the synthesis of fatty acid. First of all, where it occurs. After the digestion, the synthesis of fatty acid, that is the liver and adipose tissue inside the animals, and inside the plants there is the stroma of chloroplast, that is the site of the synthesis of fatty acid, stroma of chloroplast. Now the fatty acid synthesis can be takes place inside the cytosolic region of the cell. Now for the synthesis of fatty acid, it requires the energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. First of all, there is requirement of molecules. So the acetyl-CoA, that is required for the synthesis of fatty acid. Now acetyl-CoA and the energy, that is in the form of ATP as well as NADPH. This NADPH is required for the synthesis of fatty acid. Now the acetyl-CoA, that is comes from the glycolytic pathway. From the glucose it is converted into pyruvate, and from this pyruvate acetyl-CoA that is generated. Now this acetyl-CoA with the ATP and NADPH, that forms the fatty acid. Now this NADPH, that is comes from the pentose phosphate pathway. If we talk about these biochemical pathways that is required for the synthesis, that provides the NADPH. Now this is the simplest process how fatty acid can be synthesized. Now we are going to talk about in detail how the acetyl-CoA and the NADPH that forms the fatty acids. Now the synthesis of fatty acid, that is in the cytosolic portion of the cell. First of all, there is acetyl-CoA that is inside the mitochondrial matrix. Acetyl-CoA that forms inside the mitochondrial matrix. So acetyl-CoA that cannot exported out from this mitochondrial matrix. So this acetyl-CoA that has to be converted into the citrate form by the enzyme, that is citrate synthase. Now this citrate can be exported from the mitochondrial matrix to the cytosolic portion. So from this citrate that can be exported out from this mitochondrial matrix. After that, this citrate can be broken down by the enzyme, that is citrate lyase. This citrate lyase that broken down the citrate and forms the two molecules, that is acetyl-CoA and the oxaloacetate. Now this acetyl-CoA that is used for the further synthesis of fatty acids. Now this is the pathway, there is the stepwise reaction for the synthesis of fatty acid. Now what happens to the oxaloacetate? This oxaloacetate can be converted into the malate by the enzyme, that is malic dehydrogenase. Now this malate is going to pass through this inner mitochondrial membrane, and there is mitochondrial space, that is the mitochondrial space. So that can be goes inside the mitochondrial matrix. Now this oxaloacetate cannot directly exported to this from the cytosolic region to the mitochondrial matrix. So it has to be reduced to the malate. Now this malate is converted into the oxaloacetate, and this oxaloacetate that binds with the acetyl-CoA that forms the citrate by the enzyme, that is citrate synthesis. This is the cyclic process that carry out in the cell. Now what happens after the formation of acetyl-CoA? This acetyl-CoA, that further stepwise process can be carried out. Then there is synthesis of fatty acid. Now that is the cyclic process and the overview of fatty acid synthesis, how it can be synthesized. There is the another process that is called fatty acid oxidation. Fatty acid oxidation, that is also called beta oxidation of fatty acid. Now in next video we are going to talk about the stepwise process for the synthesis of fatty acid. In the further video we are also talk about the beta oxidation of fatty acid, and there is the stepwise process how it can be oxidized, and this difference between the synthesis and beta oxidation of fatty acids. This is the overview of the how fatty acid can be synthesized. See the next video, that is part 2 for the fatty acid metabolism, how it can be converted into the different forms, in the chemical forms to synthesize the fatty acid. And this there is the ATP calculation, how much ATP is required for the synthesis and the synthesis of fatty acid, and there is synthesis of different triglycerides. So this is the all about the overview of the fatty acid metabolism, how it can be synthesized. So if you like my videos, then click the like button, subscribe my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon, and then see my YouTube channel and subscribe and like and share if you like it. Thank you.